Alright guys, so here's the thing. My channel, primarily, I use a single Pokemon throughout the entire game and see if I can beat the game with that Pokemon. I do other challenges, but that's the bulk of my content. So this is the opposite. What would happen if I did a challenge, but I could only use a Pokemon once? And when I say a Pokemon, I mean the entire evolutionary line. Well, you would get this challenge, and unlike normal, where I decide to do the most ridiculous, hardcore iteration of the challenge, based on my knowledge of the Pokemon series, I figured the most chill way to do this would be in Ruby and Sapphire. Because as I learned from my minimum battles, another one of my wacky, random challenges that I love doing on this channel, I learned that there's only 50 mandatory battles, and I know that there's 150 Pokemon. Now, evolutionary lines and Pokemon are not the same thing, but I figured that this should at least be possible. Now I'm sure you're wondering, what the heck are you even doing here? Simple, we're gonna try to beat the whole game, and we're gonna catch a lot of Pokemon, because once we use a Pokemon in a battle, it's done. Whether it just appears to show up, whether it battles, if it comes in the battle in any way, it's out. And the entire evolutionary line is out. Now, my editor, Sean, I'm pretty sure is going to leave in the Pokedex I had on stream, so you guys can keep track of what Pokemon I have and what I've already used. And this should be an interesting challenge. Again, I don't anticipate this being the most ridiculous version of this challenge, but if you guys like it and want to see me do this in other games where it could be ridiculous, let me know and, hey, maybe sub. I don't know. Anyway, let's start. But first, one thing you may have learned about me from watching these videos is not only do I love retro gaming, but when I find something that works, I'll just keep going back to it again and again. And having said that, today's video is being sponsored by Whatnot, the #1 live streaming shopping app. So let me show you how Whatnot works. Once you sign up for an account, you can browse through various categories. Of course, for me, gaming and retro gaming are what I'm interested in, but I'm also really into sports memorabilia, trading cards, but today I'm looking for retro games, and rather than just tell you after the fact, let me show you my live reaction to finding a stream and a game that I didn't own, but really want to play. All right, let's see what next. Oh, what's this? This is Bionic Commando. I actually don't have that game. All right, let's go. I bid $8. I'm winning. 6, 5. Nope, I want that. All right, I'm still winning. Did I just win? Hey, look at that. Let's go. This is a game I have really wanted to play for a while, and thanks to Whatnot, not only am I going to get the game, I got it for a very reasonable price. And if you want to try out Whatnot for yourself, well, great news. I have a QR code in the top right, or you could click my link in the description or pinned comment, and if you do either, you will get $15 off for your first purchase anywhere on the app. Alright, so first things first, I gotta pick my starter, but it doesn't really matter, I guess, because, well, we're only gonna be using it in one battle, or two, or more. Because what exactly is a battle? Like, am I gonna be allowed to level up using wild Pokemon? I should mention, this is a completely normal cartridge of Pokemon Sapphire. There is absolutely no modification whatsoever to this cartridge. So, I'll admit, because this is the first iteration of the challenge, I hadn't decided whether I should be like minimum battles and include wild Pokemon battles, or whether that would make the challenge absolutely absurd, because you then would have no way of leveling up, at least until you got to the daycare. So because I hadn't determined it yet, the very first battle with Poochyena, I just decide doesn't count yet. But I'll try to avoid wild battles. I'll let you guys know, at this point, that had been undetermined, and Stream and I weren't really sure where we'd go. It was an experiment. This was an experiment, but a fun one. Trust me, it gets good. Now, undoubtedly, all trainer battles will count, so our only use of Mudkip, kind of asterisk, is going to be beating this Trico, which we do. But next, we actually have to catch Pokemon, right? Like, in order to advance in this challenge, we have to catch. And I could just not weaken the Pokemon and throw Pokeballs, but again, that's silly. So, in order to make this challenge, you know, doable and interesting, we're going to be using Mudkip a little bit more to catch Pokemon, and that's not going to count. So every trainer battle seems like what we're going to be settling on. And in addition, I'm not going to be using items in battle, and I'm going to be using set mode so I don't get a free swap after I KO every Pokemon. All right, we've done 4 minutes of preamble. Let's get into the run because this is the most important point of strategy here and what really sets us apart. Youngster Calvin is mandatory, and whatever Pokemon I use here is done. So what's a Pokemon that is kind of not really going to be super necessary going forward? Wurmple. I don't think Wurmple or Silcoon or Cascoon are going to be necessary. And so I'm just going to use Wurmple in this battle against this Zigzagoon. I think I said he has a Poochyena, or did I delete that? Anyway, in Emerald, he has a Poochyena. I never remember which is which. But now that I have beaten youngster Calvin, I'm going to actually deposit my Wurmple, and I'm going to end up having a giant box, including, actually, you'll see there's one in there already. That's Mudkip. And we're going to see how many Pokemon it actually takes to beat this game. So far, we've had 2 evolutionary lines down, but there are no more mandatory trainers on Route 102, so we can actually get pretty far. Now, because this isn't a Nuzlocke or that kind of challenge, I'm not going to tell you every Pokemon I catch at every route, but just assume I caught pretty much every one of them, and then I decide when I want to use them at the right time. We have to face this Aqua Grunt. So what is a Pokemon I have access to that I'm going to use? Slackoth. Now, this battle isn't very difficult. Well, I have to put it to sleep, and I may have to reset, actually, so maybe it will be. I will allow myself to reset. It's kind of just a theoretical sort of, is it even possible to do? Which I don't know, by the way. Again, not a Nuzlocke. But anyway, I attempted... Actually, how many times does this take? Holy mackerel. This took like 7 tries. Wow. Okay. But it's early, and you can see to this point, I haven't actually been leveling up against wild Pokemon if I can avoid it. Because if I can always make a challenge just a little bit harder for myself, I'm going to do that. Because that's just who I am as a person. Now, funny enough, and this may shock you, as long as you have just 1 Pokemon in your party... Actually, no, I think in Ruby and Sapphire it doesn't matter. That's an Emerald thing. You can go all the way to the gym, and there are 0 mandatory battles, which is insane. Speaking of the gym, Roxanne, I'm going to use the Shroomish line, or Shroomish. And I get Bullet Seed, and this should be fine, even though her Pokemon are going to be severely... okay, maybe? I knock out the Geodude, and I should get quite a few levels. I get Stun Spore. That could be useful. Now, it's very important I don't use... oh, yeah, I have an Oranberry. That's pretty smart. I was going to say, it's very important I only use 1 Pokemon, because if I use multiple, then I might start running out of Pokemon. Maybe. I don't know how many I'm going to actually have to use, because some battles may require me to tag team. But this one, thankfully, the Nose Pass is really cooperating, and I first try victory with Shroomish. Pretty good. So that's 4 battles, 4 Pokemon used, and I still have such useful ones as Wingull and Pelipper, Gardevoir, and Masquerain. That's not that useful, but I like that Pokemon. So far, so good. The next mandatory battle isn't until Rusturf Tunnel, and once again, it's going to be a fairly easy battle, so what's a Pokemon I can't envision myself needing later on? Well, what about Skitty and Delcatty? They're not really that good, and it might take a few attempts since it's so underleveled to beat the Grunt, but actually it only took 2 attempts, and yeah, there's battle number, what is this, battle number 5. Only 45 to go. By the way, I am going to try to avoid using the legendary Pokemon, because if you know anything about me, I hate using legendary Pokemon in challenges. If I have to, I will. Don't get me wrong. But if I don't have to, I mean, I'd love to use non-legendaries because they're just objectively stronger. And it makes me feel like, did I really do a challenge? Which, by the way, means we have less than 150 Pokemon, but it should be fine, question mark. Now, hilariously, and we're going to keep saying this, there are very few mandatory battles in this game. The next one doesn't occur until Dewford Gym. Again, I had to think of a Pokemon I don't really envision using later, and I'm going to use a Zubat, which I caught in the cave. Unfortunately, Zubat's actually really bad against a Meta-type, so it actually took a few attempts using Supersonic and Leech Life in order to win, but on, I believe this was my 3rd attempt, I cut it close, but I do win, which is nice. That is the only mandatory trainer until we fight Brawly. And for Brawly, I had a Pokemon that in Ruby and Sapphire is just so cheap. And actually, you can't get it in Ruby anyway. It's Sableye. He can't hit Sableye. Now, this battle is kind of tedious because I don't do very much damage, but it was one that I knew I would win. And so we still have a lot of really powerful Pokemon left at our disposal, and we already have 2 gym badges. When is this going to get difficult? Now. It's going to get difficult now. So I caught both Plusle and Minun to fight these 2 grunts, but this is one of the rare times in Ruby and Sapphire you have to fight 2 trainers back to back. And since I can only use each Pokemon once, I need to beat the first grunt and also have Minun faint due to rough skin. This was really hard to do, and it took me a few tries, but I did it, and then I had Plusle as my second Pokemon so that Plusle could take on the next 2. Now, you might wonder why I used Minun first and Plusle second. Actually, there's a good reason for that. Plusle has a bit higher attack, so I figured Plusle would be the better of the 2 Pokemon to take on the more difficult trainer, and that's exactly what happened. So that was a little tricky to navigate, but we did it. And now the next mandatory trainer is actually someone that is typically very difficult in these runs, Rival 2, or May 2 more specifically. I have a bunch of Pokemon I've caught, but can any of them solo her 3 reasonably powerful Pokemon? You might be stunned to see that Gulpin is the Pokemon I start using. But there's a good reason for Gulpin. It has poison gas, so it will slowly lower Wailmer's... Oh, actually, maybe this was a terrible idea. I mean, I didn't think Wailmer actually would do that much damage. I can equip an Oranberry, but in my second try... Okay, maybe Gulpin was a mistake. Oh, actually, in the third try, I almost knock out Wailmer, and I know that it's a grass Pokemon next. Now, this Wailmer will eventually start going for Splash randomly, because I don't know why. But that's kind of what I hoped Wailmer would do. And actually, I'm able to get by it without... What? How? Okay, well, that's weird. I get Sludge at level 14, and oh, Nummel's next. Okay, that's actually a kind of problem. Don't poison, don't poison, don't poison. Okay, now I Orin, it falls asleep, and I think... okay, this is a problem. Once I get to Grovyle, I should be fine, but like... Oh yeah, I'm not making it to Grovyle. So I did this quite a few times trying to solo with Gulpin, and there is the option I have to use multiple Pokemon. I don't have to stick to using one Pokemon, and this is something that I probably should have realized a little bit earlier, but I didn't, and I was so nervous about not having enough Pokemon for the Elite Four. And let's actually just talk about the Elite Four and the difficulty of the Elite Four, just so we understand where this challenge really gets its teeth. In the Elite Four, there are 5 trainers you're going to need to fight with only 6 Pokemon. Meaning, especially if I don't plan on over-leveling, I'm going to need to solo with fairly untrained, weak-ish Pokemon, 4 out of the 5 trainers, with the other one, Steven Stone likely, only getting 2. And that's going to be really difficult to navigate, so I really wanted to give myself the most amount of options for that final gauntlet. With that said, this just simply wasn't going to be possible if I didn't level up on wild Pokemon, and even though I said I was going to, other than that first mandatory wild Poochyena, where I can't actually catch other Pokemon other than Mudkip, so it just would have invalidated the whole challenge anyway, I haven't done it yet, and yet I still win. But not exactly the way I was doing it before. Once I knock out Wailmer, this time it does do some damage, I swap into Wingull, the perfect counter to Nummel. Again, it's 1 per battle, not 1 per Pokemon, of course. And then I get knocked out by Pursuit. I have Sludge Gulpin, and oh, actually, wait, maybe this was gonna work? I don't know. No, it almost works. I had to use a slightly different strategy where against Grovyle, actually this time I make it through with full health, which is extremely helpful and lucky. But this time against Grovyle, you'll also notice that both Wingull and Gulpin have Oranberries equipped, but right now what I do against Grovyle is I'm going to put it to sleep, or at least attempt to. I get lucky that Sludge doesn't poison. I know usually you'd want the opposite, but once it's asleep, I'm able to knock out Grovyle fairly easily, and it did cost me 2 evolutionary lines, but this is one of the hardest trainers I beat, and up to this point, we've done it all without extra leveling up, which I'm very proud of. If I can stick to this, I will, but I don't know if that's possible. Now, there are a ton of optional trainers, by the way, at this point. but very few mandatory ones. I believe there is 2 in the gym. I always forget between Emerald and Ruby and Sapphire, but I think there's 2 plus Watson, and Watson is quite difficult. Well, he can be quite difficult if I'm not planning on leveling up at all. Before those gym trainers, by the way, there's a Wally battle, and I actually, because of what I found out in the gym, changed my strategy a bunch. The initial idea was to use Volbeat and Illumise inside the gym, and then something else, for Watson. But once I got in the gym, and thank goodness I actually didn't save, so I wasn't locked into anything, I would find out that this strategy was kind of flawed. So let's talk about what I actually did. But it's funny, I do these challenges, like I think I did this back in like November. So this is a long time ago, and I distinctly remember having to completely redo this part. And I was very lucky, or classic me, where I don't save, but it worked out. Also, speaking of classic me, I could just plan these challenges in advance, pre-scout, and have a whole chart. And that would be really effective, but also really boring to do. And while I do most of these on my live stream, it's not about even the live stream content. I'm happy to do these offline. It's just, I do these runs because they're fun. Like, it's interesting that after all these years, even though, yes, guys, I do some runs because it's my job, and if I don't put out videos, I'm not doing work, which is, a thing we all need to do. But I still try to make the challenges, even though it is work, I try to make them as fun and interesting for myself as possible, while also hoping they're entertaining for you. But, having said all these things, once I actually learned more about the trainers in Watson's gym, and the fact that if you go a certain way, you get soft locked, yay, and that happened, and that was bad. But Illumise actually is going to be used versus Ralts, because Illumise is worse than Volbeat, and I need Volbeat for later. So Illumise goes here, and then against Battle Girl Vivian, that's where I'm going to use Volbeat, because Volbeat has Confuse Ray and Moonlight and a much stronger tackle. So that's Vivian, but there was one more trainer I needed to defeat, and it's guitarist Sean. Now, if this was Gen 4, this would be an insane drop right here, but Roselia is not great in Gen 3 since it can't evolve, so I just used it here to beat Sean. I actually lost a few times here to Sean, so it wasn't like an easy one, because Sean actually has not 1, not 2, but 3 Voltorbs. So this was actually a rather difficult battle, but in the end, and it's funny, you can see, like, it's kind of cool. This is the way I feel like Red and Blue was supposed to be played, where you used Pokemon you caught locally to beat the trainers that you were about to fight. So that was the idea behind this challenge, and so far, that's actually how it's been playing out, which is really cool. And speaking of really cool, I did have a cool idea for Watson, but it didn't work. In Dewford Cave, you can get a level 9 Geodude, but what the heck is a level 9 Geodude going to do? Like, seriously, what was the plan? What was the idea here? It's a really good matchup, and you can actually get stronger Geodude once you beat this gym and get access to Rock Smash, but I don't have it. I mean, I can use it in battle, but not outside of battle. So this is where I kind of felt like, all right, what could I even conceivably use to beat Watson without leveling up at all? This is actually a very common point in challenges where I struggle a ton. Sometimes literally by using the move Striggle, but often figuratively, where I either have to rely on an absurd strategy or just level up. And unfortunately, I think this is going to be the case where leveling up is going to be mandatory. Don't forget, I do have access to the daycare, and I haven't explicitly banned any form of leveling up. I've just avoided it so far because it seemed cool. But you know what's even cooler than an arbitrary condition that I don't even need to use for a challenge? Winning. Winning is cooler. So I have a level 17 Geodude, and now I have Magnitude. Pop, pop! And yeah, Geodude gets hit, but one-shots, gets hit again, and doesn't one-shot. Okay, we actually can equip an Oran Berry, and let's try this again. All right, let's try this again. So Sonic Boom, could that ever miss? And then Sonic Boom. All right, that's 2 times. Okay, so yeah, after losing a few times, I actually will get by the Voltorb eventually, but yeah, maybe I have to level up a little bit more. I mean, level 17 wasn't even like specifically picked for any specific reason. It was also, I didn't mean to use Defense Curl there, which is funny that this is the one where I'm successful. Literally, only was level 17 because I got bored of just biking back and forth. It is very tedious. Anyway, I actually can win against Magneton. I just need decent luck. And so rather than having to go back to the daycare, for reasons I cannot explain, but just I promise you subjectively, this is way less tedious for me. Just doing the same battle over and over and over again until I get the result I want is somehow more fun. And that's what happened. Because there's a lot of just randomness in this battle. What magnitude do I get? Do I get a Sonic Boom miss? Does it not use Sonic Boom? All these things affect whether I'm going to win. But in the end, I did win. It actually didn't take too long. And so now we have a new tool at our disposal, the daycare. But I am not going to level past the ace of the next trainer I am going to fight, ideally, unless I mess up. Because that seems like a really cool rule. And it allows me to be on even footing, but not just use the perfect Pokemon every time. And I think that's going to make this challenge really fun and reasonable and not terrible. So we're doing that. And so we're going to have to go back to the daycare a lot, but we'll have basically every Pokemon we can catch at our disposal, and we can just pick the most optimal Pokemon for every battle. For Cool Trainer Brook, I used Grimer, which I recently caught, and I had to level it up a little bit. I tried without leveling it up, but before level 19, it didn't have Sludge and was unable to beat her. And you can see as I save 11 hours, so this has taken a while, but I'm going to continue to catch Pokemon that I need for later trainers. Again, in Ruby Sapphire, there are so few mandatory trainers that it's going to be a while till I actually have to battle someone again. In fact, the next battle I have to battle is this grunt atop Mount Chimney. I use Spinda, which I caught, well, actually, I think you may have seen me try to catch it. And Spinda has Uproar and Psybeam. Good for this battle, kinda useless later. Seviper was the next Pokemon I used. Now, the reason why Spinda and Seviper make sense to me is because as Pokemon that don't evolve, while they're actually kind of powerful for this point in the game, they're going to be pretty underpowered towards the end, so felt like the right time to use both Pokemon. And speaking of both Pokemon, I don't remember much about this run, but I very much remember this battle with Archie, because I think I spent like 2 hours on it, and the biggest reason was I thought I could use a level 20 Electrike, but no, I really couldn't. And here's where I kind of figured out something, that I didn't have that many battles remaining, and I probably could double up on Pokemon more than I wanted to, but it would take me 7, 8, 9 ever to figure that out. And thankfully, due to the power of editing and me skipping ahead in the video, I can just show you what I end up doing, but oh my god, did it take the longest time for me to actually use 2 Pokemon. In addition, I was using the wrong 2 Pokemon. I thought Torkoal plus Electrike would be the perfect team, but unfortunately, Electrike just simply was too frail. While in theory, having White Smoke for Intimidate and the electric Pokemon made sense, in practice, Electrike just isn't strong enough for this point of the game, so I had to pivot. Finally, I used a Pokemon I actually wanted to save for later, Skarmory, with Secret Power, as well as Steel Wing. And you might think, how did this even win? I did this a lot of times, like a lot of times. And looking back at this, I'm just so mad at myself. Like, I could have done the math that I didn't need that many Pokemon. I could have gone Torkoal and Skarmory and been fine. And I would have saved, like, this battle took me legitimately 2 hours. Like, 2 real human hours. That's a really long time for just this one battle. But, I don't know, I only used 1 Pokemon. Also, again, just to reiterate, I am not leveling above whatever trainer I'm fighting, their strongest Pokemon is the highest I'll go. I'm trying to keep it to their weakest Pokemon, but I'm not going to go above their strongest. It just kind of keeps things even and cool. And again, I mentioned this at the beginning, this is a completely normal, this is the Pokemon Sapphire I got as a kid at Toys R Us. So rest assured, this is a completely normal game. As I fight the next trainer, Flannery, there are rare candies available, and that's important because using rare candies, I can evolve Meryl, which you can catch, to a Azumarill. And my Azumarill at level 25 with both Bubble Beam and Rollout should wreck Flannery's team. It is a thick, fat Azumarill, so it shouldn't be hit too hard by the fire moves, and I even gave it an Oran Berry for good measure. I love Rollout, it's so cheap, and this was one of the easiest and most satisfying gym battles we'd have. So you can see the Pokedex, it's starting to fill up a bit, but we still have some really good Pokemon left, like Gardevoir, I can't use Alakazam, but Kadabra, and like a metric ton of water Pokemon, the fossils. Things are looking fine. But Norman's gym does have 3 mandatory trainers, the most so far, and Norman has 2 slacking, which, while manipulatable because of their truant ability, are also extremely strong, and ideally I'd like to use 1 Pokemon, but I'm open to more. Now, if you guys will allow me to be a little meta for just 1 second, you guys are really supportive of me. If I'm ever like, I don't know if you guys like this, and you'll always be like, make that video, I'll watch it. But I'm gonna be real with you. I'm not sure how I feel about this concept. Part of it is not even whether it'll be a good video or not, although I really hope it is. But it's so tedious to do this, guys. Because since I'm not hacking in candies or anything, catching certain Pokemon like Nosepass, which are annoying to get, and then using the daycare to level them up to the appropriate level, even if you use something like the Retron 5, which has a speed up function, it still is incredibly time consuming. Like this run, I don't remember the final real world time, but the last video was over 6 hours long. Although I guess some of it was I was just messing around because it's showing 5:30 right now. And this is 2 of 4 streams. And I used to stream for like 6-7 hours at a time. So if you guys like this, please let me know, because as tedious as this is, it may be more interesting in other games, and in addition, I do like to make videos you guys like, but I will say, this happened to be one of the more tedious challenges I've done, so I'm really hoping the video works out, because at least then it's worth it, right? But speaking of worth it, all this training and catching I'm doing now is to make sure I have the right Pokemon to use for Norman's gym. Now, this gym has some branching paths, and you only have to fight 3 trainers plus Norman, so I fight Randall's Delcatty with Nosepass at level 26. It took a while, but that was fine. You'll also notice that instead of using rare candies, which are hard to get and to farm, I've equipped the EXP share on a Sandshrew that the daycare every step gives you 1 experience point. So I make sure I've almost leveled up enough that half the experience points, because the Nosepass experience points don't matter. It's done now. It's retired. I used it once, but now the Sandshrew is a Sandslash, which I can use later on. And by later on, I mean the very next battle against Parker, and I actually lose the first time, but I can continue doing this and will continue doing this throughout my battling. So you're gonna see a lot of splitting experience points and a lot of evolving Pokemon. The final trainer I opted to battle was Jody's Zangoose, and I use a Machop. I can't get Machoke yet because Zangoose is level 27, and you might wonder why not go all the way to 27, because it takes a really long time to level up in the daycare. And now you might be wondering, okay J-Rose, but what are you gonna use for Norman? Looks like you used all your strongest Pokemon, right? Well, wrong. Because against Norman, I have Torkoal. Not the first Pokemon you'd think for Norman, but if you notice my moveset, I have Protect. And because of Slacking's Truant ability, we are essentially... Oh, I actually didn't want to paralyze it there. Okay, I'm actually going to reset. We want to Fire Spin and Poison it, and then just Protect. The problem I may have is I actually might run out of power points. All we need to do is get in a bit of a rhythm and not get greedy, which is hard for me to do. I'm going to actually skip ahead to a battle where I actually make some progress. By the way, I should mention Smog has a 40% chance to poison, which is so darn frustrating. But finally we get the poison. I know that we're going to eventually get some healing from Norman, but I do knock out Slacking. Now Vigoroth was a problem because it went for Encore and wasted all my protects, and that means I will have nothing for the final Slacking, and actually, I just lose to Vigoroth because in the end, what Vigoroth does is gets paralyzed in Facades. So I have an idea. From Flannery, I got Overheat, which I don't really need, So perhaps instead of Fire Spin, I should just go for Overheat on Vigoroth. This took a few attempts, but was one of the most fun battles to kind of puzzle out, because it really did feel more puzzly than usual. But in the end, you guys kind of know what I have to do. Protect at the right time, try to get a poison as early as possible. Unfortunately, it didn't happen right away. Don't forget, Smog can miss 30% of the time. But at this point, I just have to go and alternate between Protect and Body Slam. Note that I don't have the Oran Berry equipped. I have the Lepa Berry, so that I can get 20 power points effectively for Protect, which is super useful. I also need to make sure that Vigoroth doesn't do too much damage, but once I get to the perfect amount of damage, don't worry, 5 HP is more than enough. I can then use Overheat to finish it off. Actually, that time the process was useful, and at this point, although it will be long and tedious, I actually do Knockout Slacking with Overheat, and that's actually really funny because that's the signature move of Flannery's Torkoal. I guess signature move is the wrong word because in Pokemon that means something, but you know what I mean. It's the move Torkoal is most known for in the games. So we have the balance badge from Dad, and we're going to move on to the second half of the game. Funny enough, we're about halfway through the mandatory trainers. That is a lot of Pokemon I still have available to me. Although some of those, like Metagross, I actually don't have available because they're post-game only. Point still stands. There are a lot of Pokemon available, and that is good. What I don't want to have happen is feel like, oh, if only I still had Machoke, I could have used it against Sydney. I'm trying very hard to think ahead to the most difficult battles, what Pokemon I want for them, and then work backward. The problem is, as you guys know, sometimes my first ideas aren't always the ones I stick with, and so I just have to give myself the most amount of options. But there's certain Pokemon like Torkoal and Spinda I definitely am not going to use in the endgame. And speaking of what I plan on using in the endgame, I have Pokemon like Medicham, good against Ice and Dark types, Hariyama, good against both Ice and Dark types because it has thick fat, Aggron, fairly bulky, Magneton, good against flying types, Wailord, right? These are all the Pokemon I think I'd have to use. Now, are these the Pokemon I actually will end up using? Well, that's going to be interesting to find out, but as long as I don't use these Pokemon, I should be fine, although there's still some good ones like Tentacruel and Gyarados that I have available to me here, so we should be fine. I picked this game because this challenge was brand new to me, and I knew I wouldn't have that many mandatory battles. If I do it again in a game like Red and Blue, it's going to be a lot harder. I don't even know if I have enough Pokemon if I don't use legendaries, by the way. That's a problem for hypothetical future Gyros, though. An hour later, we're in the Weather Institute, and there's a couple grunts we need to battle. There's actually a choice of which grunt I should battle when, and so you'll see me reset. But this is the one I want to battle, and we're going to use Lanoon. It's a good Pokemon, but not really needed for the endgame, and so we'll use it here. The next grunt, we're going to actually use Electrode. A little surprising maybe because Winona is coming up, but I think we should be fine. And the final trainer we actually have to battle is Shelly, and we're going to use Manectric because remember, we didn't end up using Electrike against Archie. A lot of electric Pokemon off the board, but I think we still have a very solid option for Winona, so I'm not overly worried. First things first, though, we actually do need to battle May 3. May 2 required 2 Pokemon, the only trainer I've used 2 Pokemon for. What about the third iteration of this battle? My first idea was to use Tropius. Tropius with Razor Leaf and Growth I thought would make sense. In the rain, Ember won't do much, although I don't want to get burned. The other option, by the way, I was thinking is using Castform, so I went back and forth to see which one worked better. In the end, Tropius did prove, I mean, listen, there was a little luck involved and it wasn't like free or anything, but it was fairly okay to beat Grovyle. It did need a Citrus Berry, and I survived on just 2 HP, but I wasn't, oh, did I just forget? Oh no, I just ran into a trainer and now I have to do it all over again. And hey, look at that, I'm 2 for 2. Pretty good, so you can tell I had the right strategy. You'll see that this Tropius is not leveled up whatsoever because going all the way back to the daycare before I get Fly is really, really tedious. And I don't want to do it. But if I did, this would have been even easier. But okay, Tropius did its job. Pretty good. A cool Pokemon, one of my favorite looking Pokemon, but not so useful in Gen 3. Here's where I made a really dumb mistake, because I just don't think in Gen 3, or at least in Hoenn, like I do in Kanto. What is the ace Pokemon of Winona? Altaria. What is the famous move it learns that everyone talks about? Earthquake. Because of Pokemon like Magneton that otherwise would sweep the team, now it's actually not usable. And that was what I was planning on using, which is why I used all those other Pokemon in the Weather Institute. So with my plan completely shot, what can I do to beat Winona? I had to come up with a completely different plan. Plus, I think there are 2 trainers I still have to beat first. Well, you guys already know, if it's a Pokemon that doesn't evolve, that's not that great. We're going to use it, and Kecleon is a Pokemon easy to catch, and I use it to beat Bird Keeper Jared. The next Pokemon I try to use is Surskit, and you might be like, what? Why? Because as much as I love Masquerain, it's not so great. And Swablu, similarly, is not so great. So even though I didn't evolve it, which I probably should have done, I still win. So Surskit and Kecleon are the 2 Pokemon I used in the gym, but what am I going to use for the gym? And actually, it's at this point you see I'm reorganizing my boxes, because I'd actually filled up the used box, and rather than release the Pokemon, I have them not just in these boxes, but in the order I used them. Not only that, I actually added markings to the Pokemon, where like circle meant, I forget what they all meant. Circle was like regular trainer or gym trainer, and then aqua trainer. And I'm sure if I look at my boxes again, I haven't played this in a while, I'll remember, but I may not like to nickname my Pokemon, but when I do a cool run like this, I kind of do want to commemorate it, even if it's just in a save file. But okay, quit stalling, J-Rose. Which Pokemon are you going to use for Winona? May I introduce to you Castform? Seriously, I'm going to use Castform. I'm going to go for Hail. Castform will turn into Icy Castform, and then Weather Ball, well, if it hits, will one-shot Swellow. Thankfully, Swellow actually cooperated pretty nicely with me. Next comes out Skarmory, but I outspeed Skarmory and go for Sunny Day. Now, I am Fiery Castform, and I have a Citrus Berry, which gives me 30 health, and now Weather Ball is Fire type, so I one-shot the Skarmory. And now, out comes Pelipper. Well, I'm gonna go right back to Hail, and Pelipper protects. Time for Weather Ball, and it won't one-shot, but Supersonic misses, and eventually, once Pelipper stops being annoying and stally, we're gonna make it to Altaria with an Ice-type Pokemon. It goes for Dragon Dance. I go for a base 100 same-type move, and Castform. Y'all have been sleeping on this Pokemon for far too long. Winona, absolute kryptonite. Everybody remember Castform, the champion of Gym 6. But there's still some difficult trainers left, although in this game, Tate and Liza don't have the Claydol and the Xatu, so I'm very grateful for that. There are some trainers on Mount Pyre. This is the next set of battles we need, and we went to the Safari Zone. We can actually ascend up Mount Pyre without battling a single trainer, which was very lucky. I was worried about that. First grunt, we use one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, Big Riggs, Girafarig. Love this Pokemon, used it all the time in Pokemon Gold. And although it doesn't one-shot because it has confusion, it does a really great job. Too bad I only use it here, but what can you do? The next trainer, and maybe this was a mistake, I use Heracross here. I just didn't anticipate using Heracross later. In retrospect, maybe I should have, but I figured I had some good enough fighting Pokemon. I didn't need a third option. And then the final trainer, I tried Xatu, but it just didn't work. So I used Rhyhorn, because a rock ground Pokemon is going to be not great towards the end game. 3 easy battles, 3 Pokemon I caught in the Safari Zone used. And the next trainer we have to actually fight is this grunt in the Aqua Hideout. Now, I taught Pikachu Shockwave. That is the TM you get from Watson. And it did a great job. Hey, Pikachu. Wouldn't it be fun to use Pikachu in a run? I haven't done that in a while. Anyway, did its job here. Now, against Matt, I didn't use Magneton for Winona, so I have it here for Matt. And although it wasn't good against Winona, it does pretty good against Matt, even though it's pretty underleveled. So, very happy that Magneton got some good use. And you'll see experience share on Phanpy to evolve it into Donphan, so you know that that's going to get used soon. But where? I thought maybe Taytonliza's gym. In this game, there's only one mandatory trainer. It is Psychic Samantha, and I actually use Shuppet. I caught that in Mount Pyre, and by using Curse and Nightshade, I'm able to knock out the Xatu. And that brings me to, at least in Emerald, one of the hardest trainers I have to face, Taytonliza. I figured going with 2 Surf Pokemon would be good enough. Let's see if I'm right. So my first try was using Tentacruel and Celio, both underleveled, both with Surf. Unfortunately, it just doesn't do enough. I mean, I'm able to tank the hits, but I don't do enough to knock out both, even with 2 Surfs. Actually, will I? Oh yeah, see, and here's another problem we need to talk about, specific to Generation 3. When a Pokemon faints, I have to send out the next Pokemon immediately. So if I'm going to do this without using other Pokemon, what I'm going to have to do is just deposit all my Pokemon and go back. This is fine. I'm not stuck or anything, but it's why this specific attempt is not possible. I didn't think about that. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking, J-Rose, you probably had to level up your Tentacruel and Celio, right? Fools! No, I didn't really have to do that. I just needed a little bit of better luck with what moves they both use. Funny enough, we actually get put to sleep, but we get a critical hit, and then we get Solar Beam. Then we get a heal, and while Celio is still snoozing, Solrock can't be healed because it's going for Solar Beam. So we're actually able to knock it out, turning this into a 2v1, and my Surf was doing less damage because it was being divided in half since it was hitting 2 Pokemon. That's how they do multi-hit moves, or moves that hit multiple Pokemon in this game. But since Solrock is gone, even though Celio faints, Tentacruel does half damage, and I didn't have to level up whatsoever. Tentacruel and Celio were able to beat Taytonliza at the levels they already arbitrarily were. Happy days for happy J-Rose. Guys, we're 9 hours in, and we still have a few more battles. We actually don't have that many more left, but we have the hardest ones. All right, we're about to finish with Team Aqua. Against Admin Shelly, I use Blossom. Yeah, you can evolve Gloom into Blossom, and it was Bill Awesome. Do you get it? No, in seriousness, it was pretty good in this battle. Hey guys, remember that Donphan I evolved all the way back when? Well, here is where it's going to be used against Archie, and you might wonder, why? Well, we get Swagger confused, and I actually didn't have a Person Berry. So I hit myself in confusion, and then I go for Defense Curl Rollout, and I'm +4 attack. So as long as I snap out of confusion, or don't hit myself in confusion, I just literally roll through. Oh, well, that sucks. Wait, I actually might still have this. I think I still have this. I'm going to roll through, and you can see I have a Nincada. Interesting. Wonder what I'm planning here. I mean, you guys know what I'm planning. Oh, no, I missed. Wait, I can use Flail, right? Yay! Go, Donphan! So yeah, Donphan was great against Archie, and I was able to get enough EXP that Nincada evolves at level 25 into Ninjask, and maybe I had an open spot in my party, who knows? The next seemingly mandatory battle is Kyogre, and watch what I can do. Oh, whoopsies. Watch what I can do. Hey, look at that, you can just run away. So it doesn't count. If you can run away from a battle, it doesn't count. And you may see what I'm going to be using in the next battle, which is actually going to be Wallace, the worst champion in Pokemon history, in my opinion. Of course, you could see I am using Ludicolo because it has Giga Drain, Fake Out, Surf, and Dive. And as long as I don't get such bad luck, we should be fine. I actually get moderately bad luck in this battle, and yet I think I'm still going to be fine. And yep, I was. Got frozen. This battle was dumb. And that is how good Ludicolo does in this battle. If you ever need a Wallace defeater, Ludicolo, may I present to you. Okay. So we only have a few more battles left. There are some mandatory battles in Victory Road, and there is a Wally battle. And unlike in Emerald where it comes right at the beginning, it actually comes right at the end, which isn't great because we need to have either a team or a Pokemon in place for Wally, who is kind of difficult. But first things first, there were still some more trainers to deal with. All right, the first trainer is Hope, and as I beat Hope with this Xatu, I want to admit something. It was at this point that I got really, really tired of the tedious going back and forth. And so I figured out a way to use my very, very old Game Shark in order to modify my rare candy count so that now, between that and a little bit of daycare to get the experience points in just the right place, I can do pretty much what I was doing before, but I'm already 10 hours in, and it would have taken me about 3 hours to do all the training I need to do, and that's assuming I didn't end up messing up. So, yeah. I'm really sorry to you purists out there. I really like doing things. Actually, this is one of the first times I've ever used, like, something like this. I know a lot of Nuzlockers do it, and you can see when I flash my inventory, you can see all those rare candies. Does it invalidate the challenge? Maybe. To you, it does. I don't care. I'll be real with you guys. I was actually getting kind of annoyed with how much back and forth literally I had to do. And although this video is 45 minutes and I'm in a good mood, I remember distinctly on stream I was actually in a very, very grouchy mood that day. And I just wanted to finish this run and had no patience. You can see I'm 49 in-game hours. I just wasn't having it. Shannon is next, and don't worry, I consulted with guides and the speedrun to make sure I was battling the right trainers. And all she has is a Claydol, so we use a Cacturn, and I had no use for Cacturn other than this battle. And you can see my Chinchou is now a Lantern, so everything is working out. It's kind of like you win a battle, a Pokemon evolves. The circle of evolution, and Lantern is the very next Pokemon I'm going to use, actually. When I get to Elite Four, you're going to see the exact same strategy being employed. If I need to evolve a Pokemon, some case I might need to evolve them twice, actually, this is what we're going to do, because that way I don't have to use any sort of optional battles. I have kept with no battling wild Pokemon. I didn't think I was going to keep with that, but we have kept that rule in place the whole time. And you can already tell what's going to be the next Pokemon used in the very next battle against Cool Trainer Edgar Dodrio. It's at this point you'll also notice that I'm planning ahead for every single battle. I know who I'm facing, I know what Pokemon they have, and I know the right Pokemon to use. And now I have Exploud, who I thought would be the perfect Pokemon to fight Wally. I was wrong. Very wrong. This did not go very well. And here's where we can talk about something. We know there are only 5 battles after Wally that are mandatory. So if I know what Pokemon I'm planning on using for the Elite Four and some backups, in theory, I could just use every single Pokemon I have left in order to beat Wally, including like Wobbuffet I end up using. I could get an entirely new team and try to beat Wally. But you know what's more fun? This strategy was really dumb and required very specific luck. So let me take you through it, but this is not what I had to do. I just did this accidentally once and forgot to save. So now you can see the final version of the strategy. Wigglytuff leads. I need Altaria to go for Safeguard. That was mandatory. I do some damage. Then it goes for Dragon Dance. I go for Mimic and get Dragon Dance. Mimic in this game only mimics the last move used. So now it goes for Aerial Ace. Cute Charm was very important. I go for Dragon Dance. I'm +1 speed and attack. It hits me, but I'm +2 speed and attack. Citrus Berry triggers, and now with +2, I can go for Rollout. And if all goes well, I will knock out Altaria here. That crit actually did not matter. The next Pokemon is Delcatty. I don't knock it out, but that was actually intended because the third Pokemon is Magneton, and it is only with a 5 times powerful Rollout I'm able to knock out Magneton. Next comes out Roselia. Now, Roselia I can one-shot with Body Slam, and finally, Gardevoir. I'm not actually able to one-shot it, which really, really sucked, but rather than reset, I'm not going to use Swellow. Wait a minute. Oh, well, that crit mattered. Okay, let's try this again. All right. To take two, I guess. So we got Safeguard, Body Slam, Dragon Dance. Am I going to get this 2 in a row? There's no way I'm getting this 2 in a row. Guys, this literally took me like 2 hours to get once. I might get this. I'm actually going to weaken it a little further. Go for another Dragon Dance. That was to get it to heal. And now, oh my god, this could be great. Holy mackerel, this could be great. Guys, I think this is going to be even better than last time. I have way more health. I knock out Magneton. I actually can Dragon Dance now against Roselia and make sure that when I hit Gardevoir, it will just one-shot it. Oh no, it doesn't! Whoa, it's paralyzed! Oh no, I'm still paralyzed! Come on! Yes! This strategy was so dumb. I didn't need to use one Pokemon. I had so many Pokemon in my party. I was just gonna do a 6v6. I have so many Pokemon I didn't need, but in the end... Oh, I also screwed up. Lairon didn't evolve. Okay, I'll work that into the Elite Four. That's not good. But we won. That's, you know what? I'm taking this. This is pretty funny. Let me know if you've ever seen Mimic Dragon Dance Wigglytuff, because that was the first time I ever had. Psst, future J-Rose here. Past J-Rose got it wrong. The battle he showed you was not the one that actually ended up being the final win because of the Lairon thing. That's why he did it again. But this time, he actually does one-shot the Gardevoir and was poisoned. So, J-Rose did this basically 3 times. But this time, Lairon evolves into Aggron. So if you see an Aggron, now you know why that is. He did it again. Why am I talking in frickin' third person? Also, this isn't past and future J-Rose. I just noticed I made a mistake in the voiceover and just fixed it. Like, in the... Alright, we're just gonna continue. Time for the Elite Four. People really hate that I mispronounce the names intentionally, but I really think Sidnai, Fweb, Draki, wait, I forgot Glacia, and Stevine are really funny. I just think it's funny because people get so mad I call her Loralee, even though that is what I genuinely thought her name was for most of my life prior to being on YouTube. Like, seriously, when I was first corrected, I was like shocked. Like, I had never even considered it was Lorelei. Also, Lorelei is spelled AI. I mean, at least that's how I always saw it spelled. Anyway, I'm not gonna do this for the 1000th time. Instead, what we're going to do is talk about each Pokemon I'm gonna use. Because as we talked about before, I have 1 Pokemon for each Elite Four member and 2 for the champion. So what are the Pokemon gonna be, and is this going to work? And remember, I can't save between members because then if I have to reset, I lose a Pokemon. So I have to do this all in one go. Alright, so here's my first attempt against Sydney, and I thought Aggron might be useful with White Herb. Now, it doesn't have the greatest moves because my accuracy gets lowered, and so in the end I realized, okay, I have good resistance, and then I had been sick of this challenge, so I ended stream, and came back with a fresh head tomorrow, but I actually did think Aggron would work. It clearly will not. Which also means resetting against Wally was unnecessary. My next attempt, I decide to use Medicham. Now, Medicham actually doesn't need a White Herb because I can use Psych Up. If you watched my Aber video, you saw I used that move. But in the end, I actually get trolled by this Mightyena pretty badly, but decide to just keep going because why the heck not? And then I get knocked out by the Absol. So that's a problem. So not sure if I'm going to use Medicham, but I'll try one more time. All right, so Medicham v Mightyena. This time I do have the White Herb instead of a Citrus Berry, and I just one-shot the Mightyena. Very good. Next Absol, it goes for Snatch, which is completely useless. 2 down. I might just sweep. And 3 down. Unfortunately, High Jump Kick can just miss, and that would be a big problem. And, oh, Sharpedo outspeeds me. That is a massive, massive problem. Yeah, okay, that's a problem. Thankfully, it's not an insurmountable one, to be completely honest. The White Herb is the right play here, and then we just go High Jump Kick, and hope they both hit. Against Cacturne, we go High Jump Kick. Against Sharpedo, we get hit by Surf, and then High Jump Kick is fine. And now we actually can go for Reversal, but I go for High Jump Kick, which was dumb, because Reversal would have clearly KO'd, but hey, that is victory number 1. But it doesn't really feel like progress yet, because if I were to save, then if I have to reset, we don't have Metachamp for Sydney anymore. So I need to just kind of take these in stride. Nice. Maybe this will work, but do I have the right team for the other 4 members? In fact, I forgot something, so I had to reset anyway, but I make it back to Phoebe, and you could probably tell I'm going to be using Absol. So Absol, I go for Swords Dance, it goes for Shadow Punch. It's different Dusclops than Emerald. I go for a second Swords Dance, it goes for Confuse Ray, and now I just have to start hitting with Shadow Ball and hope I sweep. I should one-shot everything including Sableye, but I could hit myself in Confusion, and I do against Sableye. So I might need a Person Berry here. I didn't have that, which is why I reset, and then I forgot to grab it, which sounds a lot like me. Anyway, the Sydney strategy seems to be working, so this Phoebe strategy should be fine. I go Swords Dance, I go Swords Dance, I get confused, I get Persumed, and now I just sweep through the entire team, question mark? No, Banette actually outspeeds me, but it goes for Toxic, and although it's a little scary, Absol is able to win pretty easily. Nice. Glacia's the one I wasn't quite sure about, because I want to use Hariyama with Thick Fat, but like, Hariyama isn't the best Pokemon, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. So I am going to use, I could try like Belly Drum. That's what I want. Belly Drum. And then, oh, do I have the Citrus? Yeah, I got the Citrus. And then, see, that still did too much. Is this the right Hariyama? Is that Thick Fat? That did a ton. But the problem is, even beyond that, yeah, it just goes for Surf. Is this Thick Fat Hariyama? Did I actually screw this up and it's not Thick Fat? That sounds like something I would do. All right, let's try it again. I don't think the Belly Drum strat is going to work. So it goes for Hail. I'm going to go for Bulk Up. Bulk Up makes sense, right? Now, do I one-shot? Oh, I'm frozen. All right, let's try this again with Bulk Up and maybe not getting frozen. I am sure this Hariyama is a Thick Fat one. I've trained it all the way to level 50. Brick Break destroys the light screen, not that it matters, and we make it to Celio. Now, the thing that sucks is that we don't really outspeed anything. So we're constantly just taking tons of damage. And Celio has, well, actually, that just, okay, that works. I was going to say it had water moves, but that one clearly didn't. And now Glalie, and then Ice Beam. Oh my god, it keeps freezing me. But, oh, I thawed. Okay, fine. Maybe we got this, although the hail may have mattered. Of course it hits with Blizzard. And by the way, confirmation, it is Thick Fat. Well, guess what happens if we don't get frozen? If you guess, hey, maybe you win, the answer is yes. Yes, we actually do. On the slimmest margin, we are able to win. And one of the reasons actually is rather than using a Citrus Berry, I use Shell Bell because the cumulative health increase is more than 30. So Shell Bell plus not getting very unluckily frozen was enough to beat Glacia. And now I fight Drake. Against Drake, I figured Glalie would work with Ice Beam, and I thought I would just spam Ice Beam and win, hopefully. Ice Beam one-shot Shelgon, that's pretty good. You can see I'm level 52. Flygon outspeeds, that's not good, but I still one-shot it. Salamence comes out next, and I don't outspeed it either, and that crit may have mattered. Okay, let's try again. All right, well, this time something interesting happens. For whatever reason, Flygon goes for Sand Attack, which in theory really sucks, but in practice, as long as we don't miss, it's a useless move. And we're able to knock out the Flygon and tank the Salamence's Flamethrower. And then, though, okay, see, we have Citrus Berry. Sandstorm, we miss. That sucks. And then it used Dig. That sucks. And then it knocks me out with Dig. So I did this battle many, many times. Think like 4 or 5 times. And yeah, I never really got further than that last one. Meaning I had to reset the entire Elite Four and go just all the way back to the lobby. Hooray! Now, I wasn't going to change any of the Pokemon I've already used. They're doing pretty fine. All I did was teach Glalie Rain Dance, which I didn't have. Now, you might wonder, why in the world... Actually, I can't get hit by Rock Tomb. Now, you might wonder, okay, just go for Protect, God! Ah! Okay, eventually this is going to happen. Turns out, never did. It just missed with a Rock Tomb, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I started saving between Elite Four members because we should be fine, right? Like, this is the last one. We're good. So with Rain Dance up, I can go for Ice Beam, and now Flamethrower will do nothing. Of course, it goes for Sand Attack, which is brutal, but as long as I don't miss, we should be fine. See, now Salamence, what's it going to do, right? Rain's falling. Okay. Wait a minute, I can go for Protect. Okay, let me try that again. The very next battle, we get the exact same result, where we get the Mist from Rock Tomb, Ice Beam, Rain is up. So we know it's going to probably go for Sand Attack. Maybe I should have actually gotten... Actually, there is no second White Herb, so scratch that. All right, this time it's going for Crunch. Good thing I went for Ice Beam. Okay, so is that it? GG, right? Maybe Sandstorm. Okay, that's all right. Dragon Breath, Ice Beam. What's the last Pokemon? I think it's Altaria, right? So we're fine. I don't need Blizzard. It is Altaria. And I just need to hit. Oh, I outspeed. Nice. Okay, perfect. I'm going to save here because I think we're good. I think I have the strategy that's going to work. I have a Flygon and I have a Ninjask. And if you're wondering what I'm going to do with those two Pokemon, let me first say that I actually did have a Quick Claw on that Glalie and it never freaking activated. So, grr. But I'm not going to need a Quick Claw with what I'm about to do here. All right, so here's the strat. Skarmory versus Ninjask. I go for Swords Dance. Aerial Ace doesn't knock me out. Speed Boost, Citrus Berry, and now I Baton Pass and win? Question mark? That's the idea. So, wait, I forgot to teach Fire Blast. That isn't gonna... Is this gonna work without it? Not looking like it. All right, one moment, please. Okay, let's try that again. Steven has Skarmory. We go Swords Dance, it goes Spikes. That means we can go for a second Swords Dance. It goes for Aerial Ace. We don't really need the Citrus Berry. We are +4 in attack, +2 in speed, and we win. Fire Blast doesn't knock it out. Steel Wing is fine. I have Citrus Berry. I go Fire Blast, it misses. Steel Wing is fine. I go Fire Blast. I have a nice amount of health. Is it enough? Earthquake on Aggron will clearly knock it out. Thank God Sturdy's not a thing. Metagross, Earthquake will clearly knock it out. Next is Claydol. I have to go for Crunch. It goes Light Screen. Oh, I don't have any other physical moves, but I get a crit. And Spidef drops and Earthquake. Wait, can it hit me? I don't actually remember if this thing is a thing to hit Flygon with. I think we're good. Yeah. No, it's not going to be able to... I think it is Ancient Power. Yeah, so oh, well... There's an Omni Boost, but that is fine. Light Screen has failed, and so we should be... Oh, that Omni Boost actually mattered. There's Light Screen, but it's fine. Okay, this is going to be fine. Reflect kind of sucks, actually. I kind of would rather that not be a thing. It's still up. Light Screen failed. Please, one shot. No. Oh, goodness. We're on 2 HP. Come on. Reflect War off. Let's go. That was so ridiculous. All right, I definitely needed a better move for Claydol. Probably could have used Return or something. My bad. That was bad planning, but it still worked. And now you know there's at least one game where you can use each species just a single time in battle and still win. I don't think it's possible in every game, by the way. I think there are some games there are so many mandatory battles. Like, for example, Gold, Silver, Crystal. It will not work. There are like 100-something mandatory battles. There's just no way. Maybe Fire Red, Leaf Green, or Red and Blue, but I don't even know if that's possible, especially with Brock. But I don't know if I want to find out. Kind of like the Kaizo Blue video. If it does really well, I'm going to just do another one because why not? But if it doesn't, I hope you guys enjoyed this one-off interesting challenge. Always nice to be innovative once in a while, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care.